Because what you, the unsung heroes in the wastewater industry, do matters. Join me, Suzan Chin-Taylor, the DooDoo Diva, a longtime veteran of the wastewater, trenchless, and civil infrastructure industry each week as I deliver industry know-how from industry pros who know how. Whether you want to learn about the latest trends in technology, training and retaining great talent, sales and marketing, leadership and growth, or simply how to be more efficient, productive, or profitable, this podcast is for you. Let's dive in.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by marketing and not getting the opportunities you desire and deserve? Well, you're not alone. Many businesses in our industry have struggled with this same problem until they learned and implemented what we're going to reveal in Lifting the Veil: Secrets of Top Marketers, Time-Tested Strategies, and AI Innovation. This is a very special interactive bootcamp-style workshop being presented at the upcoming 2025 WWETT in Indianapolis. In this workshop, we're going to lift the veil on proven traditional, digital, and AI strategies that generate sales, recapture lost leads, and set you up to thrive in 2025 and beyond. Don't miss this opportunity to transform your growth and achieve your business goals in 2025 and beyond. Click the link below in the show notes for more information and to reserve your seat at this very special workshop. We look forward to seeing you in Indianapolis, February 18th, 2025. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. Today, I am visiting with Drew Lewis from Reline America, and this is going to be the first part in a three-part series about UV-GRP and its many aspects and its purposes for pipeline rehabilitation. And I like to kind of look at UV-GRP as that it's not really a new technology, but for many people, it's the new kid on the block. But I see it as one that is truly revolutionizing the way that we go about pipeline rehabilitation. And so just to set the stage, Drew, thank you for coming on. Yep. But to help our audience who may not be familiar or maybe not, they may have heard of it, but not know too much, give us a little background about what is UV-GRP exactly, and what are some of the characteristics that make it different from other lining methodologies or materials that we may be very familiar with?
Sure. So UV-GRP, simplest way to put it is an ultraviolet light cured glass reinforced pipe liner. Everyone, I'm sure, that watches your series here is familiar with CIPP overall, but some of the main differences would be that this is a glass reinforced pipe liner. So what's happening is you're still using resins, but that isn't your structural property to this liner. You're using an actual glass or fiberglass on the inside of this resin that is holding the structural properties of this particular product. Some of the differences would be you have the ability to make a stronger and thinner liner than your traditional CIPP methods. For instance, you'll see thicknesses in the range of 3 to 3.5 millimeter on the low end, and on the high end for larger diameters, you're anywhere from 14 to 16 millimeters, depending on the manufacturer. So you're able to get a much thinner product with having these higher thresholds for strength.
Okay. And so, what about lifespan in comparison to other things that have already been out in the market?
Sure. So what I can do is I can speak for our product itself, and the Alpha liner made by Reline America does meet the ASTM 2019 spec, and it does meet the 50-year life requirement of that spec.
Okay. So from a specifier's point of view, some other differences from what I understand, not like other ambient or steam or other hot water cured, explain the UV process for those who have seen this or unfamiliar with how this actually works and, what it takes from a technical standpoint.
Sure. So there are a few differences on the job site itself. Anytime you're doing a rehabilitation project, you're still going to have your cleaning, your cammering done before any of these projects take place. That's a given no matter what you're doing. But where you start to see some of the differences is, number one, the footprint on the project is completely different. So we're not having to deal with boilers, any scaffolding or anything like that on the site. No water trucks on the site. We don't have to use any water at all in our process. You don't have to worry about removing that water at the end as well, too. Our liner will show up on site pre-made from the facility in Saltville, Virginia, which is an ISO 9001 factory. Again, I'm just speaking in regards to Reline America and our product, but our particular product will show up uncured, crated to either the job site or to the contractor that's doing the install itself. It just depends on what they want to do. When they get there, they'll have setups on both manhole upstream and downstream. And basically what you're doing is you're pulling this uncured liner into play. We recommend that a slip sheet goes in first. It's just a way to protect that liner and make it move smoother through that pipe. Some people use it, some don't. We recommend it as a manufacturer that you do. But you pull that liner in place, you insert a can or a packer on each side, you introduce air. So you're pressurizing that line now, which is going to inflate that bag, if you must, inside of that hose pipe. Now, once you do that, your light train, and I guess I forgot this step. So before you put your cans on, you're actually putting in a light train too. Then you seal it up. So your light train's already in the pipe. You're pressurized now. Your liner's holding against that hose pipe, and you start to pull it down through the pipe. On your first pass, you're not firing up the UV bulbs, which are used to actually do the curing itself. But in the front of the light train, there's a camera. The camera is used just for like a visual inspection. It records the whole thing as well too. So it's another way to kind of reassure everyone of the quality process of this. So you're being able to track what's going on from start to finish. This initial pass is used typically for just a visual inspection of, do we have any sags anywhere? Is there any wrinkles forming already? Do we need to inflate more, deflate more, get a little more stretch on the liner before we actually start the curing process? So when we get to the opposite manhole, then you can go ahead and fire up your bulbs, get everything cooking, and bring her home. Cure times range, obviously, it depends on the thickness of the liner, and it also depends on the diameter of the liner as well, too. So it just depends on what you're dealing with there, but there are set speeds that you need to be moving to cure that liner.
Okay.
Now,
Go ahead,
Suzanne, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I didn't realize you weren't finished. Go ahead.
No, it's good. I ramble sometimes, so I apologize.
No, that's perfectly okay. It's great to have more detail on this because me being a visual person, just trying to imagine what's happening. Now, there's something else that you told me about offline that your system has that's quite important. I see it as quite important. Is this, it's called the quality tracker.
Yes, ma'am. Quality tracker system.
The quality tracker system. So how does that come into play in the installation process? And
sure.
Why is that so important? Like why is that something that you as a company have insisted upon?
Yeah, no, great question. So the quality tracker system is something that all the equipment we manufacture in-house comes. What this system does is it tracks our speed, our temperatures, records all of our video footage, whether it's pre-cure, during cure, and if you have to do a post, you can. Most will just go in and do a post after everything's cured up and cool down has occurred. They'll put a regular CCTV camera in there and do it that way. But if you feel like there's a need to, you can. The biggest thing for this is circling back to this whole quality outlook on everything. With us being an ISO 9001 factory, we want to make sure that everything is traceable, repeatable. Quality is number one priority. So with the quality tracker system, we are able to record this whole process, including our cure logs, which is showing our temperatures throughout the whole process of the cure, and actually hand a deliverable to your asset owner saying, your line is cured.
So here was the technical thing that popped into my head. If you're in a residential area, because next episode, we're going to be talking about applications, and we're going to be focusing a little bit on storm, because storm does affect the wastewater system. I think it does, but it's all one water. It's everything connected. But how about lateral reinstatement? How long do you have to wait before you can begin that lateral reinstatement? Because everybody, it's always time is money, and the least amount of just community, the better.
Yeah, that's a great question again. So once you've reached your cool down times and the pipe itself and cured liner now has had the time to actually do a proper cool down, you remove your cans, put your cutter in, go ahead and restate them.
Okay. Do you need anything special on the reinstatement cutter? Because I know it's obviously a different material because it's glass, spirally wound, than felt. So it's going to have some different properties for reinstatement.
Yeah, there's really no specific type of head or tool used on the actual cutter itself. I know what a lot of our installers do is everyone has their own method. Everyone has their own tool that they like. And what they will do is they'll go in, they'll reinstate it, and most of them brush it afterwards too. They'll change the head and they'll brush it to smooth it out and make it look pretty.
Okay.
So, for me to sit here and say this is the tool that everyone's using, I can't do it because everyone has their own method. So,
okay. Well, now here's another maybe a loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
How does it play? Does it play nice if, let's say, you're a system where there's been some lateral relining or top hat that's been done with traditional felt, or maybe you're doing one section of a line and then you come up to an area where there's been another material? Does it play nice with other previous rehabilitation?
It does for the most part. Like with any other CIPP method, it's basically taping the shape of what's in that pipe. Okay. So if you have if you have a pipe, let's just use this as an example. If you're going from one material to another, you're not necessarily going to be able to tell, but you may be able to see some sort of little deviation right there where the change occurs. And that may just be a bump. It may be a teeny tiny wrinkle. There's really no way to dictate how that's going to come across on the actual cured product itself. But there is, if you're talking about the lateral side,
more that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of those top hats and reinstatements or repairs that they've done to those we're pretty compatible with.
So Drew, I'm sure you talk to a lot of specifying engineers, you talk to a lot of contractors. So as a specifying engineer, why should I be looking at this as another tool in the toolbox? Or maybe I've been looking at traditional CIPP, but then UV-GRP has some other characteristics. Why should the market be giving this more and more consideration as they move forward with their pipe rehabilitation plans? Because it seems to me that it is a little more environmentally sensitive in that everything is sealed.
Yeah.
The other thing, smaller footprint, not having to use as much water, so that's not as much energy, that's not as much gas running engines and all the things that go along with that. But what are some of the things that they should be looking at as the whys behind this, or things that they should be exploring to start?
Yeah, and I think that it really comes down to whoever is designing this particular project needs to really have a good understanding of what their clients' needs truly are. And what I mean by that is look at the big picture. Where is this pipe located? What's around it? Is it a sanitary? Is it a storm line? Is it going through a major intersection that has heavy traffic during rush hour? Is it going to cause some serious headaches for the population that lives right there?
Right.
Again, I use that as an example because if we're looking at just the footprint alone, our footprint is substantially smaller. I'm not saying that there's not equipment on site, because there is, but we don't take up as much room as some other traditional method. If you're looking on the storm side, is there water nearby? Where's the outfall going? Is there a lake? Is there a stream? What are we talking about here? These are all things to consider, because at the end of the day, if you live in an area that's sensitive to environmental factors, you may want to consider this because of our inner and outer film on UV-GRP. It helps contain all that uncured resin within that bag until it's cured. As long as these installers are following their manufacturer's standards of practice for installation, they should have a really good chance on mitigating risk of exposure to any of the resin inside of that bag.
Now, I know one of the big things that's going to come into somebody's mind, well, what about the costs? Is this thing going to be more expensive than other things that I have used that I know are tried and true?
Yeah. That's another good point too. This is definitely a bit more of an expensive rehabilitation, but if you look at it over the length of its life, look at what you're gaining out of it. Look at the structural properties out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying UV could necessarily be the best fit for every single project out there, because we do have to look at the whole picture of it. But what I am saying is that when you do go with UV and it gets installed properly, you have a solid investment for the next 50 years and potentially longer, just strictly based off of its properties.
Well, that's a perfect place for us to end here. And also to those of you listening, if any of you are planning on attending the upcoming WWETT show 2025 in Indianapolis and would like to do a little bit deeper dive on this subject or explore a little bit more, there is going to be an in-depth industry panel of experts that are going to have an open discussion on the topic of UVGRP, what it is, what it isn't, where it's going, the market capabilities for it, the potential for it, its applications, why start specifying and using it, and a whole host of other things that you just need to know about the technology if it's something that you're looking to pursue. So I invite you, if you're going to be at the show, put that on your show planner. It is going to be on Tuesday, February 18th from 4 to 5 p.m. at the Indiana Convention Center in room 124. And so again, Drew, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And we're going to be continuing our dialogue on this subject. And our next episode is going to be focused on applications, primarily the concept of OneWater and UVGRP for stormwater and protecting our valuable watershed resources. And so thank you for tuning in. And until next time, keep it flowing.
Be sure to subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. If you're an industry expert and would like to be considered as a guest on the show, click the Be a Podcast guest link below in the show notes for more information. Thanks again for joining me, the DooDoo Diva, on this week's episode of the Smells Like Money podcast.